The 7th episode of the new Disney Gallery Mandalorian documentary is now available. And this time, we're looking at the music of The Mandalorian. And that means we're focusing on Ludwig Göransson. It's my favorite episode so far, and I'm going to break it down after the intro. Well, hello there. My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're almost there, everyone. This is the penultimate episode of the show, as it will finish up next Friday. And this time, the episode is called Score. You know this question's coming, so did our Mandalorian documentary universe continue to expand this episode? As I certainly expected, we definitely added Ludwig Göransson this time. The surprising thing was that was it. In fact, this episode felt very unique compared to all of the other episodes of Disney Gallery. We focused purely on one subject for the 23 minutes of this episode. Just the score, nothing else. We didn't try to squeeze in sound effects or anything else into the episode. And heck, we only talked with 3 people for the entire episode. Just Ludwig Göransson, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. And for a first, the person who did most of the talking in the episode was not actually Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni. It was actually Ludwig Göransson. In fact, the only times we talked with our showrunners was when it was at a table with the 3 of them, and we never talked with them one-on-one during the episode. Definitely a unique feeling. And hey, I always want deeper dives, you heard me say it before, and that is definitely what today's episode was. So let us now dive right on in as well. So we open the episode up with Ludwig playing a recorder, and we get to see how he made that iconic main theme. Talking about how it's soulful, intimate, almost childlike, and yeah, I mean, I can see those elements in there, definitely. And then adds the drum into it, the piano, then doubling the bass line, and then a guitar. It's like, yo, just all those elements going in and how he just jumps from one to the next. Nicely done. By the way, bonus point to anybody who's not thinking about it. A recorder is a flute. It may look more like a woodwind or a clarinet just because of how it's held, but no, it is a flute. Just a bonus piece of trivia for you. So now we come over to the table. Good old table time. And Jon Favreau is talking about how Ryan Coogler always brings up Ludwig to him over the years. And apparently both Ludwig and Ryan started out making student films together while roommates over at USC. So there's an interesting history between the 2 of them in the first place. And other reasons that Jon Favreau really liked bringing in Ludwig for doing The Mandalorian was that he doesn't just do films, but he also does popular songs, such as the work he's done with Donald Glover, as Childish Gambino. And that really fit the idea that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had for The Mandalorian, where they're really looking for a Star Wars sound, but also like this dystopic twist to it, bringing in some Marconi and some Kurosawa film music, shall we say, into it. And so that's pretty neat. And I love Dave Filoni just bringing it back to George for a moment, where he comments that, guess what? He learned from George that Star Wars really does cover a lot of different sounds in music, because that was George's philosophy on the matter too. So in that sense, Mandalorian is just continuing George's legacy right there. And from the sounds of it, Ludwig really was given the ability to have free reign over the music and really experiment and go to town on it. And heck, look at the results. I mean, dang. He made our good old samurai gunslinger western show have one heck of a good set of music in it. I loved getting to hear a little bit of Ludwig's process as to how he approached all of this. How the first thing he did after he got the scripts was he just closed himself off in his studio for an entire month just with his instruments, no computers. And over the course of that time, he made 5 5-minute songs, brought them back over to the studio, showed Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and boom. That was it. Everyone definitely in agreement that that was the music for the show. We got to see so many of the different musical instruments that Ludwig uses in there. There was this really cool giant device with tons of buttons to mess around with and plugs to plug back in. And Ludwig really calls it kind of like a toy that just lets him kind of inspire himself from one sound to another, kind of like on a kindergarten playground in a sense to him, and made some really cool sounds out of that thing. And then we talked about these 3 major steps that the music went through. So first, it started off with something really different. Then there was this dystopian tech added to it, where it goes through filters and computers. And then for the third component, an orchestra was brought in. And Ludwig especially felt that was important to honor Star Wars. And, well, he loves the orchestra and what difference it makes to really have 80 people in that room. And then we certainly had the chance to talk about just how much everyone loves the music in Star Wars, just how iconic it is, and probably more than anything else, one of the things that we can all unify around and agree about is that the music in Star Wars and John Williams does one hell of a job. Ludwig went on to say how really working on the 8 episodes of season 1 was really almost like scoring 3 separate films, and tricky because they were all so different and kind of their own story and also on different planets, and but you've got to also make everything fit together. So there was kind of a new theme for each episode and also the Mandalorian theme to tie it all together. And I gotta say, definitely watching this show, I agree, definitely all fits together and yet all definitely felt unique and yeah, definitely really nicely done. And the music in this show is really important because you don't get to see Mando's face, so this brings that much more emotion to it. And also, I have to say it's important because Star Wars always has had strong music. It's not just some distant background thing that you're not noticing. That's not Star Wars. Star Wars, the music is in your face and is telling you, hey, I am definitely going to affect you and take you on a trip. And frankly, that's John Williams right off the bat right there. And his legacy, I think, will always be existent in Star Wars. And what would an episode of Disney Gallery The Mandalorian be without Dave Filoni getting a couple good speeches in there really talking about the ethos of Star Wars? And he had 2 big ones in this one. I mean, first off, he had this big old speech talking about, well, how George Lucas really was creating all of this for the first time, but here at this point in time, we're not doing that anymore. Everyone already knows, say, what a stormtrooper is, or what a Wookiee is, or etc., which is both good and bad. And that makes one of the important things for them to not put too much of a grandiose importance on things, to make sure to keep some of that funness and lightness within the show and within the movies. Because you don't want to cherish it too much, because then you hold it too tight and turn it into something it's not meant to be. And he made sure to make the reference as to how the same is true of the music if you just stuck to what was done before, rather than letting it breathe and have its own room to grow. And how really all of this is a very fine line of making sure to take the chances and do something different and yet really honor what's still there. And I mean, dang if Dave Filoni doesn't understand that better than most anyone else within the Star Wars universe. It's impressive how much he gets that balance right there. And then Dave Filoni's other speech, what's shorter, was one to close out the episode and just talking about how Star Wars is super generational. We've got our original trilogy generation, the expanded universe generation, the prequel people, Clone Wars people, etc., and how they all love similar but different things about Star Wars. And really just making the comment that, hey, this music too, to a generation of people will also be powerful and really, really mean a lot to them. But for the very last note, we end with Ludwig over on the piano with the main theme, which is a nice touch. I mean, this really was a great episode, and I definitely recommend watching it if you can, because there's so much to gain from being able to actually hear the episode as we're talking about the music. The episode also focuses on a number of the different specific pieces of music throughout the episode. And so yes, if you couldn't tell, I definitely love this episode of Disney Gallery The Mandalorian. I love getting to dive a little bit deeper into the subject. Now next time for season 2, give me a 20 episode Disney Gallery The Mandalorian with 20 different deep dives, right? Okay, they're probably not going to go do that. No, I think the show's done a great job, even if I love my deep dives. I mean, yeah, gotta go ahead and try to cover so much in so little time, and they've done a really good job of balancing things out. Which, for the people working on making the documentary, that is a tricky task. Well, next week is going to be the end of the Disney Gallery Mandalorian series, and it's going to be titled Connections, which, again, is a super fitting title for the final episode. Wonder if we'll get to see a trailer or sneak peek for season 2 as well while we're at it. And hey, it's that time of the episode, so I ask, well, what about you? Did you enjoy having a super focused episode? Any thoughts on Ludwig Göransson? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like, share it with anyone you think will too, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it yet. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you always.